Welcome to the Scrum Feed, where Paul Dalligan and I pull apart what's happening in the NRL. And Paul, State of Origin delivered again on the biggest stage last Wednesday with the Blues clawing their way back for a win in Game 1 after the Kalen Ponga send-off.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was amazing to see. I don't mind saying at 20-0 down, I think it was, I pretty much had given up, as I think a lot of New South Wales fans had. Watched it with the kids and they told me that there's still a chance. And I said, I've been seeing this show too long. Kids, Daddy's gone. So I watched it on the train and the second half it worked, if you can believe it, Professor. But what a comeback. And I certainly wasn't expecting it. And we hate to use legal terms on here, but the but-for test, but for that send-off, I couldn't see New South Wales winning that game, but we'll take it for what it was. And it was fortuitous turn of events. But to the letter of the law, another expression for you, it was a send-off. So people comparing it to Sawali, who was pretty much horizontal a couple of years back and sent off when he charged an opposition player. That's not the test. And also the fact that the referee sent it upstairs was overruled effectively, but still went with his original decision. I think he was entitled to do that. And the NRL has actually looked at it and they've backed him up on the decision. So it shouldn't take away from an amazing game that it was. And I think the game was the winner.
Goes without saying, Paul, a team with Nathan Cleary in is very hard to beat.
Oh, it is, but you've got James Tedesco. I did like Luke Keary saying he put up those bombs for 6 years at the Roosters, and Tedesco never caught one like that for him. But he came up with the play when it mattered, and that's what the great players do, and it's probably saved Laurie Daly's job, and that might be why he went for Tedesco over the very dependable Dylan Edwards at fullback, which surprised many.
Tip of the cap to you, Paul. You said last week that Ethan Strange would be a terrific replacement for Mitchell Moses. A 21-year-old, he certainly played above his years.
He did, and this talk that Moses should come back in, I think is crazy talk. He has to be there on that performance. So we'll see what Laurie Daly does. I don't know if Moses will be ready for Game 2 in any event, but Strange has to be there, and you can't change that winning team.
Also look at Women's State of Origin, Paul. A clean sweep for the Blues. The first time ever they beat Queensland 12-4. The Blues experience showed in the end.
And not just that, there's 2 matches they've won in 2 weeks in Queensland. So Game 2 in Brisbane and Game 3 in the Gold Coast. So very impressive from the Blues. And it was a low-scoring game, unlike the male counterparts, but a good defensive effort and a fantastic series for the Blues.
A fun fact linking the men's and women's State of Origin, Paul, Coach John Strange of the Blues, father of Ethan.
Yes, well, that Strange surname, all puns excused, certainly triggered my memory when I saw Ethan Strange first making the grade in the Raiders. So it is a small world, the rugby league world, and he would be very proud of his son after that Game 1 performance, and a lot more to come. He's got 10 years in a blue jersey, Ethan Strange. I could say that now with all confidence.
And a player getting better with age, Blues second rower Yasmin Meeks, player of the series, played very well.
Yeah, she did, and it was fantastic for the game. And if we are going to lead into the men's game, I was very impressed that the TV ratings on the weekend set a record for the NRL, and it was over 5 million people tuned in on the weekend. So we used to crow about the Origin numbers, but that couldn't have been better timing for Peter V'landys and Abdo while he's still there with the TV rights. 5 million people tuned in to watch rugby league over the weekend, which dwarfs the AFL, and it's not for us to gloat, but absolutely amazing numbers, and the game is going better than ever.
Red line candidates, Paul. We've already ticked off the Dragons, Titans and Eels. The Broncos. Now, we've got to question them. They lost to who we thought were the worst team in league at the moment.
They did, but I'm prepared to forgive that. I still think they can make the 8 just, and we'll put your Dogs in that category as well. But like the sword of Damocles, if you know that one, Professor, hanging by a hair, a thread, only by a footy boot shoelace in this instance, hanging over the Dogs and the Broncos, that red pen of yours, like a samurai sword about to drop with, I think, one more loss for either of them.
Well, watch this space for next week. See how I go. I'll be sharpening that red pencil up.
Yep, I think it's going to be pretty soon for those 2 teams, unfortunately.
All right, let's have a look at what happened in round 13. Sharks 28, Schooners Sea Eagles 22. It was really all over at half-time, 22-4. Sea Eagles had a terrible first half. Completion rate, 75% compared to the Sharks, 95%. There was the difference.
It was, and the Sharks at home, a pretty formidable commodity. It was a high-scoring game, and it ended up looking quite close, but the Sharks controlled it, and they're starting to find a bit of form, and they're one of the teams that I think will win a lot more of their games than Blues in the run home.
Knights 28, Eels 22. The Eels had way more possession, but couldn't make it count on the scoreboard.
Yeah, whether the Knights took their foot off a bit, but a touch concerning because they were very, very strong favourites at home to win this game. So whether that's a sign of things to come, turn ahead to this week, but they've got a trip to Melbourne coming up. So it's just a concern for them, and that might tell you who I'll be tipping in that game. But yeah, a good win for the Knights, but not impressive though.
My Bulldogs not good enough. West Tigers 22, the Bulldogs 16. Paul, the Bulldogs had more possession. They outgained the opposition by 400 metres, but couldn't make it show on the scoreboard.
No, that attack, we're still waiting for it to click, and it's as I said, it's going to be very soon. We'll call them gone for the year. The Tigers, though, were good at home. Api Coruscant, as I predicted, coming back was the one who controlled it like an orchestra conductor, and he should come into the Blues team, I would say.
Storm 18, Roosters 4. I thought the result would probably be the reverse of that. The Storm had 10 minutes more possession. Completion rate tells the story too. Storm 91% completion rate. The Roosters a horrible 61%.
I have to say, almost enough to put a smile on Bellamy's face, those numbers. He'd be very impressed with that. And as we did predict, the Storm are on a run, and I think it'll keep going. The Roosters, some worrying signs there. They never do too well here from memory in Melbourne, but a good win for the Storm. I'm glad you didn't get the red pen through them because, as I said, they're going to go on a run from here, and we'll just watch them, see how they go.
I did have a look at the post-match coach's press conference, Paul, and Bellamy did have a smile on his face, which was unusual for him.
Well, it is, and he couldn't have been much more impressed with that, given the Roosters were in pretty hot form. And as you say, those stats would probably please Bellamy more than the outcome, the fact that they controlled the match and didn't let many tries in. One, for that matter. So a very good performance from the Storm, and they're going to be one of the hottest teams in the comp in the run home, is my tip.
Broncos 26, Dragons 30. Valheim scored a double for the Dragons. The scoreboard flatters the Broncos, Paul. It was 30-2 at one stage, and that's at Suncorp.
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. If they weren't so passionate, the Broncos fans would have been walking out. In some parts of London, they would have been ripping seats out, but shocking performance from the Broncos. One of the worst seen in 10 years they're talking about. So just an absolute abomination. And you can only imagine what Maguire was like afterwards. But all credit to the Dragons. Those players deserve that, and they've stuck together, and they got a good win. I don't know how many more they'll get this year, but it was something that was a very good team effort. They just look different. Just different energy, and something started to click there. So that might be a start of things to come.
Well, we hope so for the Dragons fans. Raiders 26, Cowboys 12. That would have been a bigger scoreline, Paul, but the Raiders could only convert one of their 6 tries.
Yeah, I saw that. I think the record's 1 of 8, the worst ever performance in the kicking department. So that was Ethan Strange, I think, on the kicking duties. So we'll see what happens, but they've got to do better than that against some of the better teams. But they owned that match, and it's starting to look like a fortress again in chilly Canberra.
Well, I said it'd be the game of the round, Paul, and it proved to be that. I checked the stats. These teams were that level. Panthers 20, Warriors 18. Panthers got home by a sniff on their home ground.
They did, and it just had too much class, even without the Origin contingent there. But I don't think you should take anything away from the Warriors. They were missing 2 players as well, thanks to Origin duties. So, yeah, fantastic game. And both of these teams wouldn't have lost any admirers in the run home.
Round 14 starts Thursday night, Paul, at Brookvale. The Sea Eagles 5th, taking on the Rabbitohs 6th. Still no Latrell. He's going to be out for at least another couple of weeks, but I see David Fafita and Brandon Smith are back in.
Or more than that, more big names than Glastonbury coming back. You got Brandon Smith, Fafita, Campbell Graham, Cameron Murray. I am stunned that the Rabbitohs are outsiders. I think that they're absolute specials in this game, and I'm stopping just short of declaring it as the guarantee this week. But you could have snapped up a better price earlier in the week before all those names were in. But I still think they're the best value seen since the first outing catalogue, Professor. They are absolute specials. I think the Rabbits, and your man Schooner should be justifiably nervous. I think the Rabbitohs will get this done.
First game on Friday night, Paul, at 6 o'clock. Melbourne Storm playing the Newcastle Knights. Sandon Smith out for the Knights. Who will win this one and why?
Well, it's funny. It's 13 against 4th, but I'm actually tipping, as I alluded to earlier, the Storm at home. They're on a run, and I just think there's some question marks about the Knights. It's great to see them going well, but this is a class act at home on a Friday night. I think the Storm will keep their run going.
The late game on Friday night in Canberra, Paul, the Raiders 12th taking on the Roosters 3rd. You'd want to have your thermal underwear on.
Well, I was going to say that I think it'll be hot, whatever you're wearing. I think the Raiders will win this as outsiders. I've got them, particularly with that Roosters performance last week, pretty draining against the Storm. I've got the Raiders continuing their momentum at home. It'll be a cracking match. I just think the Raiders will get it done.
The 5:30 game on Saturday, Paul. Cowboys 9th taking on the Dolphins 7th. Reuben Cotter back for the Cowboys.
Yeah, but I think with the best centre in the game, Herbie Farnworth back for the Dolphins, and also their scheming playmaker Cody Nikorima back. I think the Dolphins are on a run. They've won 4 in a row since I called that they'd go on a run. And the teams they've beaten are the Raiders, Rabbits, Dogs and Storm. So not exactly chump teams amongst that. There's some good teams in there. So I'm tipping the Dolphins to go 5 in a row with this one.
The nightcap game Saturday night, Paul. The disappointing Broncos playing the disappointing Titans. Shibasaki's out with an MCL for 5 to 6 weeks. Our man Shibasaki, they haven't got his scoring power.
No, they haven't. And Ezra Mann's been dumped back to reserve grade. So that's Maguire pretty much wielding the whip there after what was an abomination. So I think the Broncos will win, but not with any great confidence. The Titans will be fired up, but I just think the Broncos at home, they can't do that twice, surely.
Early game on Sunday, Paul, the West Tigers 10th playing the Panthers on top. Be hard to go past the Panthers in this one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, with all their origin stars back and rested, yeah, as much as I love the Tigers and I'd love someone to challenge the Panthers, they're all class and they'll get it done against the Tigers.
Late game on Sunday, Paul, Sharks against the Dragons. Can the Dragons make it 2 in a row with Nico Hines still out?
No, I think that the Sharks are on a good enough run. As impressive as the Dragons were, unfortunately, I think they struck the Broncos on a very bad day. So I've got the Sharks winning this at home, but probably closer than some people think. But I think the Sharks will be too classy.
The King's birthday match on Monday, Paul. The 4:05 p.m. game, Bulldogs 14th against the Eels 15th. We thought the Eels, well, both teams have been disappointing. We thought the Bulldogs would be way up the ladder and we thought the Eels would be vying for a place in the 8, but they're cellar dwellers at the moment.
Well, so waiting for Gono, just waiting for this Eels attack to click. But looking at the team on paper, you've got Crichton wanting to impress for origin selection, Burton and Galvin 6 and 7, Carraz at the back who's pushing for origin selection. Bronson Cherry's playing amazing. I can't see them losing. And I say that as the guarantee of the week, the Dogs. I've got them clicking. I'm prepared to put the guarantee on a struggling team. That's the sort of things we do here, put the neck out on the Scrum Feed. So I've got the Dogs winning this in the guarantee to close the round out.
Even though back in April, the Eels beat the Dogs 38-20.
Yeah, you know I'm a week-to-week man, Professor. I don't get burdened by such trivialities. I go with the gut, and the gut says the Dogs are going to win this, and they'll click. You'll actually be able to hear them clicking from the sideline. Specials.
That's all for the Scrum Feed for this week, Paul. So until next week.
You keep feeding that scrum, Professor.
Responsible gambling is paramount. For support, contact the Gambling Help online at 1800 858 858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.